G'day there guys, it's your main man Markee, back at it again with another episode of r/Am I the A-hole. Now if you love this video like I love you, I want you to sit back, relax, chuck a prawn on the barbie, and enjoy the bloody good content. Posted by user, Am I the A-hole throwaway Roman. Titled, Am I the A-hole for telling my wife I wanted her to wear something less embarrassing? Sounds sad, but let me explain. Long story short, my wife is an ancient history buff. She speaks classical Latin and can at least read some kinds of Greek. She really knows this stuff. She is obsessed. Sometimes it's kind of awkward because she will use weird Latin that no one knows, and then explain it, but it's whatever. Obviously watching movies like 300 with her sucks, but she has a big interest and it's pretty cool overall. But she's taken it a little too far. She had me help her build this huge loom, and she melted down lead shot to make weights for it. It's gigantic, and she wove huge sheets on it that she wears as togas. I don't know what she actually calls them, and they're like dresses, and she says they aren't togas, but I don't know. Stereotypical Greek statue look. She wears them a lot. At first, it was just around the house, but then she made a fancier one out of like silky stuff that she dyed, and she wears it out at least once a week. Yesterday, we ran into some friends we haven't seen since lockdown at a park. She was wearing the dress. They invited us to go to a beer garden later. In the car, I told her we were going home before going out so she could change. She got really upset and told me she was really excited to talk to them about how we built a loom in quarantine and how she made it on her loom and dyed it accurately. I just don't think it's appropriate for her to wear what is basically a costume out with friends, and I don't want her talking about it all night. She argued that lots of modern dresses have the same look and that with gold sandals and jewelry on, she just looked dressing. I got pretty mad and just told her I was embarrassed to be seen with her in a weird toga costume. She decided to stay home, so not changing clothes was more important to her than seeing our friends. She hasn't talked to me since then, last night. Am I the a-hole? Yes, what are you doing making fun of your wife? How have you progressed to this point of marrying her and being with her if you are this embarrassed to be around her and her hobby? I don't get why a toga offends you so much. You helped her out in the entire process, and now you're like, you know what, it's kind of embarrassing, it's kind of cringe. You're an a-hole, you suck for doing that, why is she still with you? You're the a-hole. Your wife sounds super cool, and you sound like a jerk who doesn't appreciate her. She's absolutely correct that many dresses have the same design, and it will not look that weird at all. Your wife has some cool interests that she's very dedicated to. Your friends won't be nearly as weird and judgmental about it as you are. I know, right? I want to see a pic of the dress. Your wife sounds so cool. Could be because I'm a bit of a nerd, but if I met someone who made a dress out of fabric they made on their own homemade loom, I would be madly impressed. Your wife deserves a more supportive and fun husband. You sound like a lame-o who is too worried about image. I hope OP shows her this thread. First, so she can see how many people are impressed and think her work is awesome and cool and really want to see it. Second, so she can see how many people think her husband is being an a-hole about it. Girl, let your Roman weaving flag fly. Who cares about embarrassing? Especially in casual situations. It'd be one thing to break a dress code at a wedding or wear something that insults people, but this isn't those things. Why not wear a ball gown to shop for groceries if it makes you happy? Who gives a crap? You're the a-hole. I'm a Latin teacher, and I sort of really want to be friends with your wife right now. My husband forbid me from speaking to the cats in Latin anymore, and after the accidental fire that may or may not have occurred during my recreation of escaping Pompeii after the eruption of Mount Vesuvius, I don't get to engage in much of my passion. I do still have my sword though, which comes in handy for mock gladiatorial combats. Let her do what makes her happy. First off, it's called a stola, and most are either worn with two shoulders or tied around the neck. Unless there is something absolutely wild about the design, I have a feeling it probably looks like a modern maxi dress, especially if she isn't wearing a tunic/undershirt. Would you really even notice the outfit if she was a stranger walking past in the street? Probably not. She's not wearing cosplay armor or anything out of place. You're the a-hole OP. Although I want to see it because it sounds wicked cool. Posted by user Musical Carrot, titled, "Am I the a-hole for calling my aunt a frickin' idiot and searching her room?" My aunt and cousin are staying with my family for a little while. I have asthma, and I take pills for it every night. Yesterday morning, my cousin came up to me and asked if I could stop taking my pills because it triggers her. Anyone else in the world, I would have said no, but my cousin is a recovering drug addict, so I said I can take it in another room, but I still have to take it. She got mad, but left me alone. Night came when I was supposed to take my meds. I leave my meds on my desk so I know where it is. I went to my desk to grab it, and it was gone. I asked everyone in my house if they had taken it, and they said no. I had this feeling in my gut, like I already knew what happened. I went into the room my aunt and cousin were staying in and started searching. I looked in the bedside table, and there they were, my meds. My aunt walked in right as I was going to take them and started screaming at me about going into her room. Last I checked, this was still my parents' house. She grabbed the meds out of my hand and said it's really difficult for my cousin not to relapse when she knows I'm taking pills. Dude, they're pink and bubblegum flavored. They're barely even pills. She said that I'm going to have to do without my meds while they were there. Now, let me just say, my aunt is one of those crazy anti-vax essential oil type tramps. She doesn't believe in asthma. So I snatched my meds out of her hand and called her a fudging idiot because I can't breathe if I don't take those meds. She got angry and told my mum that I called her a fudging idiot and searched the room. My mum took away my phone. Am I the a-hole? By the way, I take 5 milligrams of Montelukast for anyone wondering. Mum and aunt are in their 40s, I'm 14, my cousin is 17. Please don't bash my mum. She's punished me for the cursing, and I don't think she got the whole story. Also, for the people asking, my mum and dad were on a date when I noticed my meds were gone. Update. So I told my mum the whole story, and she gave me back my phone, then sent me to my room while her and my dad talked to my aunt and cousin. Update 2. My mum told my aunt to apologize or she's getting kicked out. No, I don't think you're an a-hole for reacting like you did because they were stealing your life-saving medication away from you. Like, how brainless can you be that you think, God, if you take your medication that's going to save you in front of me, I'm going to relapse back into my addiction. It is not your place to tell a 14-year-old not to take their asthma medication. You're the one that made those choices to put yourself in such a situation at 17 years old. You cannot control the 14-year-old, especially not over something like this. OP, you were not the a-hole and you did everything right in my point of view. Mr. Brink says, your aunt potentially risked your life. You already reached a compromise with your cousin about taking the pills out of sight. If she is so new in her recovery that the idea of someone taking medicine regularly out of sight is enough to trigger her, she should be in an inpatient facility getting additional treatment. Your mum is a piece of work. I can't understand her reaction, and I'm sorry, OP. Not the a-hole. Glad this is up pretty high, because the cousin really should be seeking treatment if A, it's that easy for her to relapse, and B, her mother believes she has the means to relapse, or access to her addictive substances or behavior. I'm surprised the mother even believes in addiction, since she doesn't seem to believe in anything else. Her views of treatment might be out of whack, and it's possible she wouldn't sign her daughter up. Her cousin sounds like a dry drunk. If you stop taking drugs and don't get counseling to deal with whatever made you want to take the drugs in the first place, you aren't recovered. You are one bad day away from being worse off than you were the first time that you quit. Drug addiction is a compound mental disorder that uses drugs as a means of easy dopamine/serotonin release and is almost always a coping mechanism for depression, anxiety, and a myriad of other disorders that need separate treatment. Long story short, if her crackpot mother doesn't get the child some counseling, then they're still a drug addict. They just haven't taken drugs in a while. All it takes is one scene in a movie where someone takes a pill, anything of that sort, and instantly the mental trigger is there and they want to get back on the horse. As a quite young person especially, counseling for the cousin is absolutely critical here, and I hope to God the mother wakes up to that and doesn't try and push pseudo-intellectual nonsense like essential oils as treatment. Not the a-hole. Someone's addiction is their responsibility to handle. Even if we were talking about an alcoholic telling someone not to drink alcohol, it still wouldn't be reasonable, let alone someone telling you you can't take pills you need to survive. I'm not so sure I agree with that, and I think there are circumstances where it's okay to expect someone to try to help avoiding triggering an addict, but this isn't one of them. I am against the concept of pills. The main difference is that you don't need alcohol, but you do need medication. You can avoid drinking or having alcohol in the house if a recovering addict is there, since it is not necessary to your health, but you can't avoid your medicine. The addict just has to deal with a compromise. My husband's uncle is a recovering alcoholic, and I did not know that. Uncle and aunt came over for a visit. I ordered him a beer. He said no thanks. I went upstairs to my bedroom to grab something, and my husband followed me. Told me his uncle used to be an alcoholic and to be careful in the future. Later on, I apologized to his wife and said I didn't know. She said it's good when someone asks him because then he gets to say no, and everyone always babies him because of it. Anyway, the point I'm making is that the chance to say no in social situations or be able to exhibit self-control is huge for a lot of recovering people, and they have worked hard for that. Posted by user Mortgage Geo Rent, titled, "Am I the a-hole for not wanting to split my boyfriend's mortgage payments?" I, 26 female, have been with my boyfriend, 29 male, for a year and a half, and we've brought up the idea of moving in together a few times. The problem is, he owns a house and has owned it since before we ever met, so this brings up the issue of mortgage payments. I have no problem splitting utility bills, groceries, recreational stuff like Netflix, internet, etc., however he wants, whether it's straight down the middle, by usage, or through a kind of give and take. That stuff is totally fair to me. He also brought up that he'd like me to split the mortgage payments down the middle, but I don't feel like that's fair. The biggest issue is that I don't feel comfortable paying half of the mortgage payments for a house that isn't mine. If we broke up, he would keep the money I put into the house, and I would have nothing to show for it. He bought the house himself, so I feel like he already committed to making those payments himself off his own income. Plus, me splitting bills should make his monthly expenses a little less too. He's uncomfortable with this, and has tried to frame it like paying rent, but it's not rent. It's a house that's in his name and he will own one day, and it feels like a power dynamic where I move in, sleep with him, and help pay off his house. So if we break up, it's all a win-win for him, and I'm left with nothing. Besides, it's not a place I would choose to live, because it's double the commute to work every morning compared to where I live now. Plus, I just moved into my apartment 2 years ago, so all my furniture is relatively new and all my own. But he's already furnished his place and is happy with it as is, so I'd have to give away or sell all of my furniture for a fraction of what I just paid for it. It feels like I'm at the losing end of everything here, and even if he tries to frame it as paying rent, it's still a crappy deal. I pointed out that if we think of it like rent, then it's his job to shovel the driveway and take care of the yard, and that he'll take care of and pay for all repairs and maintenance, etc. He got upset and felt like I was just being spiteful and petty, but I feel like he's missing the point. Ultimately, I feel like he committed to buying the house, and for me to pay half of that is not fair on me when we aren't getting a 50-50 split of the house in the big picture. Am I the a-hole? ETA, I'm not against paying a fraction of the mortgage as rent, which is 10 to 30%. I just don't feel it's fair to pay half of it like he wants me to. Edit 2. Didn't expect this to blow up, and I wasn't going to come back because I've been getting some pretty nasty DMs, But I wanted to say that I didn't originally post the difference in rent versus mortgage a month because I was asking more about the principle in general here. For those wondering, half the mortgage he's asking me pay, combined with splitting his utilities, my current place is all-inclusive, I would only be saving between $100 to $150 a month from what I'm already paying at my current apartment, and a lot of that would be spent on gas for the increased commute. Final update, I have asked my boyfriend to stop bringing up talks of moving in together for the time being. He's a bit hurt, but we'll work through it, hopefully. I just want to make it clear that I never wanted to be added onto the deed, nor did I ever expect to live rent-free. It didn't and still doesn't feel like a healthy dynamic for my boyfriend and I to be paying the exact same amount every month, yet he has full authority over everything in the house. Furniture, renovations, etc. And if we were to break up, I would be the one without a place to stay, especially since I'd be paying the same per month as I pay now, so he would be saving money while I spent about the same. Paying around 30% would allow me to save up my money in case something went horribly wrong between us, and I was left without furniture, without a room to sleep in, and without a proper landlord who would be required to let me stay there for 60 days until I found another place. That was what I meant by having nothing to show for it if we break up. Thanks for reading. God, can you please cut your sentences down, OP? You're writing a paragraph a sentence. But I think everyone sucks here in this situation. I think they're both being rocks that are unmoving, and I do think that I don't know if there's an easy solution in this one. She doesn't want to be on the deed of the house. She doesn't want to live rent-free. She wants to pay around 30%, which isn't a fair split, but he's unmoving in his decisions too. This is just a big gigantic mess, and she keeps talking about if we break up, if we break up. It sounds like a breakup is on the horizon. I think both of them suck for the actions they have taken in this one, and I wish them all the best in their future. It doesn't really look like there's a clear winner in this dispute. Everyone sucks here. Pay rent. Decide on a fair market value for rent. Maintenance bills are on him. He needs to let you furnish a part of the home. I wish this comment was higher because this is exactly the right answer. OP pays market value rent, they split the monthly bills, and home maintenance and exterior crap like snow removal, roof, paint, plumbing, etc. are on the boyfriend. I agree that paying market value rent and splitting the utilities is a good idea, but maybe they should take into consideration that she wouldn't necessarily pick the area because of the commute. Not sure how that would be reflected though. Maybe as a consideration of time lost and fuel cost? Oh, she should definitely get a discount. If he wants market rate rent, he will have to put up with a roommate who won't have sex with him, or help him with any of the chores or share any groceries. Then he will also have to deal with the roommate policing when he can have his girlfriend over. Everything from her post tells me she doesn't want to move in to begin with. Good for that dude though, buying a house. She's gonna have to pay rent somewhere. At least he's not throwing it in a hole. Posted by user HeightShort7332. Titled, Am I the a-hole for not forgiving my husband for a mistake he made a decade ago? When I had our oldest child, I planned for just my husband and I to be there. I wanted support, but not to be overwhelmed, and he was happy it would be just us. He said if I had let my sister in the room like she wanted, he would have expressed his issues with it. The labor seemed fine enough. A buddy wanted to see him before Buddy went on vacation. Buddy even had the audacity to say I should have had the baby sooner. My husband went to see him off. He never asked, he just told me, and I was having a contraction, so I literally couldn't even tell him I wanted him to stay. While he was gone, things took a turn, and they told me I was becoming high risk. I opted for an epidural in the event I needed an emergency C-section, because they said I was on my way to the OR if our heart rates got worse. I wanted to wait, but I couldn't take the pain, stress, and lack of support all at once. The nurse did her best to assure me I was amazing and making a good choice. My husband strolls back in, big smile on his face, and starts talking about the fun he just had. I cut him off to tell him I was livid, hurt, and that he could go sit in the corner until pushing time. He was only there because I wanted to tell our child he was present for the birth, that I was the better person and he should be grateful. He sulked away and the nurse treated him accordingly. I stayed high risk and the room flooded with nurses at pushing time. Fortunately, both baby and I surprised them, though we were both monitored for a few days. I agreed to go back to our home under the condition every single demand I had was met. He agreed, though we continued to have some rough moments. With our second, I had my sister present. I told him it's because I knew she wouldn't let me down. He didn't argue, but I know he was hurt by this. The birth went really well, and he was a good support. We have had many ups and downs since, including a separation, and now we are trying to reconcile and are in therapy. He brought up recently this, and asked if I forgave him. I told him no, I'm never going to. I don't bring it up anymore, but the anger and disappointment I felt then is still as strong as it is now. He looked defeated and said he can't apologize anymore for it, and as long as I hold on to that anger, we are going to have trouble moving on and building trust. I don't disagree with him, but I don't think I can forgive him for that. I know he's made improvements, but that moment changed how I felt about him and saw him as a person. I honestly feel like allowing him in the room at all was all the kindness he could have asked of me. But admittedly, I did that for our child. I don't bring it up, and our therapist said I'm good at giving opportunities, but I don't think I'll ever be able to say, I forgive you for that. Edit: the second child was not planned, but a birth control fail while we were both working on our marriage. I did not plan on having another child with him until our marriage was in a better place, but I accept it, and I do not regret having the second child. He was present when our second child was born, and even cut the cord like he did with the first. Edit: I'm done commenting for now, but I would like to clear things up. I did end the marriage for other reasons. My husband wants to work things out, and I am trying giving all of his efforts. He has also read the comments. Despite many of you judging me and taking his side, he can't feel supported by this. He also doesn't understand how all of you blame me for stringing him along. He is the one who wanted another chance that I didn't have to give to him. He absolutely does not want me to end our relationship over this, and is worried about the encouragement I have been given. With some of the other comments, he's realizing how unfair he has been to me. He absolutely brings it up to soothe his own guilt, not because I do anything to him about that. We both will discuss this with our own therapists, and well as the marriage counselor, when we can finally get back to her. Thank you for your judgments, this really did help. I would like to be optimistic in this situation and think that they can repair this relationship between them. I feel like we've gotten a pretty good spread of both sides, and that not too much has been held back from us, I guess. I think obviously the husband did a lot of wrong in this situation by leaving. I think he was ignorant and was strung along by a stupid friend and was easily, I wouldn't say manipulated, but I think he put the priorities of his buddy and saying goodbye to him too high over being there for his own child. And I don't blame the wife for being pissed off at him for that. I can't obviously empathize because I can't have kids, but, she could have been scared for her life in that moment. She was high risk. She had a lot of other people in the room there scared for her life as well as the babies. That really isn't something you can easily forgive someone for just walking out on you like that, even if they did come back. And I don't really know a good compromise in this situation. I do hope that the marriage counselor can help them through it, and yeah, it's not looking good, that's for sure. Everyone sucks here. In the moment, yes, you should have been livid. It's understandable even if it's something you cannot get past. This could be a deal breaker for many people. But you stayed in the relationship and brought another child into it knowing you would not forgive this. He sucks for leaving. You suck for holding on to it while acting like you were moving forward with a life with him. Agreed. He done screwed up royally. And I don't think OP has to forgive it, but what kind of relationship can you have when a mistake is always looming like that? And OP replies, I've been thinking about how to respond to this comment a lot. Up until now, I feel like an a-hole for not forgiving him. A lot of my friends, his friends, and a ton of our family have taken my side and said he doesn't deserve forgiveness. But I also feel like an a-hole for ending the relationship over this. But I had to face the possibility of our child dying alone. And while he has been great in so many other ways, he expects me to let go of that so he feels better. I'm really torn about how to handle this. He expects me to let go of that so he feels better. I would argue that it's not just so that he feels better. What kind of partnership can you have if one person will never deeply trust the other person? How can your relationship ever be equal if there will always be a power imbalance because you will always hold this over his head? Not a value judgment on your feelings, just a statement of the relationship dynamic that you've described. I'm not saying you have to forgive him, but I am saying that neither of you will ever have the relationship you deserve if you try to stay married while this issue remains unresolved. This is also why I don't think most people can make it work after cheating. There are some things that we are unable to forgive and move past, and once that trust is broken, there's never going to be an equal and trusting partnership. If you truly can't ever forgive him, it's time to stop the insanity. I think there are two things here. One, your husband needs to learn to accept that he offered an apology and was not forgiven. He needs to find a way to move from that and not live in fear it will be held against him. A genuine apology is not about being forgiven or about resolving guilty feelings. It is about acknowledging the wrong you have done and seeking to do better regardless of the other person's response. 2, you both need to hear that forgiveness is a process for the person doing the forgiving, not the person apologizing. Forgiveness reaching a point where you are no longer experiencing anger or pain from the wrong you've suffered. If you are not ready to forgive, that does not make you a terrible person, it just means it still hurts you deeply. Ultimately, forgiveness is not the cure to your husband's guilty feelings, and a disingenuous forgiveness from you will only breed resentment. The thing is, a lot of people here seem to be under the impression of it that I'm holding it over him. I'm not. I gave him chances and good faith, and he let me down. Our marriage ended for other reasons. This is just one thing I'm struggling to deal with. For the rest, I am working with, and my therapist is very pleased with both of us. I think the problem is that people don't often grasp that trust, closure, and forgiveness can be independent of each other. I think you've reached a place of closure, and you've rebuilt trust with him, but you haven't forgiven him, and that's okay. I really don't think your husband has grasped that, and he hasn't offered himself closure, so he doesn't see that you have reached a place of closure, even though you still carry the hurt. And our boy Ghost in Your Pants offers some good words of advice. Here's the thing. My grandma taught me that in every single long-term relationship that you have, whether family, friend, or lover, eventually the other person will do something that disappoints you deeply and makes you question everything good about them. It's human nature. People make terrible mistakes every day. For me, I feel like how you react to that mistake is the turning point for understanding your choice to love someone through it. If you can look at the big horrible thing and say to yourself, I hate this thing about you, but I will choose to love you anyways because having you in my life is worth that pain, then that's real, man. And sometimes you have to make that choice more than once, and sometimes you have to understand when that thing is a deal breaker. But to go on and on and on, and keep these horrible things between the two of you is just not healthy. Another thing my grandma used to tell me was, you gotta crap or get off the pot. Thank you, Grandma. Lovely words of advice. Posted by user, deleted. Titled, Am I the a-hole for holding the health and safety of my dogs over the comfort of my cousin and her family? Earlier today, my distant cousin told me that she/husband/3 kids were coming to visit. She asks if they can all stay in our house since we have the space and since they want to avoid paying for a hotel for 2 weeks. I reminded her that we have 2 dogs, golden retrievers, who shed a lot, and she and her kids are very allergic. I'll point out that I did not at any time say that she and her family could stay to begin with. I simply avoided by bringing up our dogs. Then she tells me that I need to leave them outside or board them. I told her that we are neither putting them outside where it's far too hot to leave the dogs right now, nor boarding them up in doggy daycare for 2 weeks, especially since my 13-year-old is diabetic, needs regular blood glucose testing and insulin, and has a set routine to manage her diabetes. Plus, aside from the dogs, her husband is a lot, of a homophobe, and I'm not going to have him spewing bile to me and my fiancé in our own home for 2 weeks. But I didn't tell her any of this. She responds by telling me that I should put my older dog to sleep because she's already old and because she has diabetes. She then says I would only need to put one dog in doggy daycare if I did that. She then asks me if my dogs are more important to me than her and her family. I flatly told her that they were. I also told her that after her comments and her husband's pre-existing behavior, there isn't any possible manner in which I hold her and her family in higher regard than my fiancé and what are basically my furry babies. I advised her that she is not welcome to call on us at our home, that I decline any invitation to get together at any time, and sarcastically encouraged her to have a wonderful vacation. Am I the a-hole? Update, I don't appreciate the private hate mail I've gotten about this. Stay safe, everyone. Even from the start, I didn't think you're an a-hole, given what the husband is like, and the fact that she just wants to have 2 weeks free. Doesn't even offer to pay for the doggy daycare if you were ever going to be, in that position to put them somewhere else. Just straight up entitled parents demands left, right, center, middle. Screw them. How about we put one of her kids down while we're at it, so that they only have to deal with the one? That seems normal to me. And why don't we make demeaning comments about their relationship the entire time they're staying with you? Because hey, that's normal and healthy too, let's do that. There is no universe in which I would ever consider you the a-hole in this situation, OP. You keep doing you. Hey, would it be cool if we crashed for 2 weeks? I'll need you to kill your dog, by the way. Not the a-hole, and what the hell? Right? Having the gall to suggest boarding a dog for the comfort of her stay is wild. To bring up euthanizing it is so far beyond the pale that I'm at a loss. Not only would I dismiss this psychopath out of hand, I'd seriously consider our relationship going forward. Not the a-hole. I have a cat, and my paternal grandmother doesn't exactly like any sorts of pets, but other than the time we were getting him, she doesn't say a word about the cat because she understands that he is part of our family. She will not pet him a lot, but she shows that she has started to like him. I am quite allergic to cats. Growing up, my aunt had 2 very fuzzy ones and soft furniture that easily absorbed the cat dander. My parents insisted on visiting my aunt and uncle for Christmas each year, even though I would constantly sneeze and wheeze as a result. Even still, I never told my aunt to put her cats outside or board them even for one evening. Those are part of her family. Not the a-hole. Telling you to put your dog down? That's messed up. Also, boarding your dog for 2 weeks would have been expensive. Instead of her having to pay to stay somewhere, you would be paying for them to stay with you. I'd have them pay for the boarding, as there's no way I would ever pay for someone else to use my home. Even then, boarding dogs is extremely stressful to them. They're shut in a crate for a good chunk of time, surrounded by other dogs in crates and away from their family. When I go on trips, I always check if a family member or a friend would take care of my dog before I would ever consider staying at a boarding facility, especially if it's for 2 weeks. Not all boarding is like that. My boarding place in Florida had large room-sized kennels, a huge yard and a boat and private island where they took groups of dogs to let them run and swim and play in the Gulf of Mexico, all very highly supervised and with all the doggies wearing life jackets. My dog Bear never wanted to come home after staying there. To be clear though, in no way was this crazy relative okay for insisting anyone do anything with their pets for their comfort and convenience. That's insanity. Alright, and I think that's where we're going to leave today's episode, guys. I really do hope you enjoyed the content today. If you guys loved watching it as much as I loved making it, I would love for you to subscribe to the channel already if you haven't. Tell me what you thought of it down in the comments below, maybe like the video, who knows. I'd also like to take this time to thank my awesome Patreon and channel members. Without you guys, I don't know what I'd do. I'd probably be homeless on the streets of Ireland, crying, Irish dancing all over town. It would just be a mess. But no, for real, you guys are up on the screen now. Thank each and every one of you guys. And if you personally want to join the club yourself, there are links down in the description below. There's also the join button next to the subscribe button. Small monthly fee, but hey, it goes a long way to help me create more awesome content. Well, with that said, guys, I hope you do have a lovely day, night, sleep, evening, day at work, day at school, whatever you're up to. I hope you keep awesome today. You're looking amazing, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.